"One eye," the head had said, "one eye for one drink." And the father of the gods stood at the edge of the well and did not look away, because he understood the price and he had already chosen to pay it. This is the story of the day a god chose to blind himself on purpose with his own
I
hand.
seek counsel, O
Because he
mirror
feared
of
ignorance
fates.
far more than
Grant
he
me
feared
the
pain.
wisdom to guide my
The story
people
of
through
how
the coming
Odin,
storm.
highest of all the gods, became the wisest being in the 9 worlds, and why, ever after, he would look upon creation with a single, searching eye. To understand what Odin gave up, you must first understand what Odin was. He was not at heart a god of thunder, or of war, or of the harvest. Odin was a god of one thing above all, knowing, wisdom, the deep understanding of how all things are and how all things must end. And that last part was his torment. For Odin had already glimpsed the secret beneath the whole Norse cosmos, that it was more, that the world tree could fall, that a day was coming, foretold and unstoppable, when the gods themselves would go down into fire and ruin. Ragnarok, the doom of the powers. And Odin did not know of it the way you might know a distant rumor or a prophecy told to frighten children. He knew it the way a man knows the wound that will one day be his death, carrying it silently in every hour of every day. He had heard the Norns speak the very hour of his own end, and where a lesser god might have looked away and drowned the knowing in mead and war, Odin could not. He had to understand it, how the end would come, and whether by any means at all it could be turned aside. So he became a seeker, the most relentless the worlds have ever known. Each morning, they say, he sent out 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, and they flew the length of all creation and returned at dusk to whisper into his ears everything they had seen. And still it was never enough. He feared always the day they might not return, and he would be left without thought, or worse, without memory. And so, again and again, he went himself, not as a king, crowned and shining in his golden hall, but as a wanderer. A tall old man in a gray blue cloak and a wide low hat pulled down over his brow, walking the roads of the 9 worlds in disguise. He traded riddles with giants who could have killed him. He sat at the fires of the dead and listened. He gave up his comfort and his name and his rest, and asked for nothing in return but knowledge,
ancient
one hard-won piece at a time. For Odin had already learned the first and hardest law of wisdom, that it is never given freely, that everything truly worth knowing costs you something to know it, and the more a thing is worth knowing, the more it will cost. And the deepest wisdom of all was kept in the deepest and the strangest of places. There was once a being named Mimir, wiser than any god, or any giant, or any living thing that ever drew breath. Long ago in the elder days, 2 great tribes of gods went to war, and then grew weary of it and made an uneasy peace. To seal that peace, each side sent its own to live among the other, as tokens of trust. And Odin sent Mimir, his wisest counselor, into the keeping of the other side. But the bargain soured. They came to believe they had been cheated, and in their anger they cut off Mimir's head and sent it back to Odin as a message. Another god would have buried it and mourned and let the wisdom rot into the ground. Odin did something far stranger. He took the severed head and washed it and wrapped it in herbs so that it would never decay. And he sang charms over it, low and endless, until at last the dead eyes opened and the cold mouth moved and it spoke. And ever after, the head of Mimir rested beside a well among the roots of the world tree, the well of wisdom itself, whispering its counsel to the one God wise enough and desperate enough to come down and ask.
Look closer.
And so at last, Odin came down to the well itself. Down he went, down the great gray trunk of Yggdrasil, leaving the high halls of the gods behind him. Down past the world of men, with its walls and its firelight. Down past the cold and the mist, and the deep places of the dead, to the second of the tree's 3 great roots, where the living wood plunges into shadow. And there in the dark beneath the root, he found it, a still black pool. It did not look like much. No gold, no fire, no guardian in armor. Only water, so quiet and so perfectly dark that it might have been a mirror laid flat upon the ground. But this was Mimir's well, the gathered wisdom of every age that had ever been, cooled drop by drop since the very dawn of time. And beside it in the silence waited the whispering head, who had known long before Odin's foot touched the last root exactly why the Allfather had come.
Find the path.
For a long moment, the Allfather and the whispering head regarded one another across the still black water, and neither of them spoke. The head of Mimir had counseled Odin through 100 dark hours. It knew his hunger better than he knew it himself, and it knew too that some kinds of knowledge are a wound a man carries for the rest of his days. At last, Odin asked, simply and quietly, for a single drink from the well. And Mimir, who understood the worth of that water better than anything that had ever lived, did not bargain
of the
and
elder
did not
gods
soften.
are stirring
One
in the
eye,
deep.
he said, one
They
eye
crave
for one
blood.
drink. Think for a moment what that means. Not a coin, not a beast for the altar, a piece of himself, torn from his own face, given up and never returned. To see beneath the bright and lying surface of the world, Odin would have to give away forever half of his ordinary sight. He did not weep, he did not argue. He raised his hand to his own face, and with his own fingers, he took the eye and let it fall. Down into the black water it went, and the well received it and kept it, so that even now the old stories say, Odin's eye lies gazing up, wide open, from the floor of Mimir's well. Then he drank, and the wisdom of the ages poured into him, cold and vast and terrible. He saw further than any god had ever seen or ever would. The roots of things, the ends of things, the turning of every fate, and clearer now than all the rest, the exact shape of the doom that was coming for them all. And here is the cruel and beautiful heart of this story. The wisdom that Odin paid so dearly for was mostly grief. He saw in more detail than any being ever should precisely how the gods would fall. He saw the wolf that would one day be his own death, and he could not unsee it. He learned that all his knowing might delay that day, but that it could never, ever turn it aside. He became the wisest being in all the 9 worlds, and in the very same breath, the most haunted of them. From that day on, every hall he walked into already knowing how it would end. That was the true price, not the eye. The eye was only the coin. The price was carrying forever everything he now knew. And yet, knowing all of it, he did not stop. One eye given to the well, the one-eyed wanderer turned back toward the very tree that had taken it. For there was a wisdom deeper still than anything in Mimir's water, a knowledge so old and so secret that it could not be bought or bargained for or drunk. It could only be suffered. And so the Allfather would climb the world tree. He would wound himself upon it with his own spear, and he would hang there, alone, between life and death for 9 long nights and 9 long days, reaching down into the dark for the greatest secret ever kept. Next time on GODLOOM, the hanging of Odin, the 9 nights upon the tree, and the birth of the runes.